So much of what becomes our identification with our egos and who we think we are, of course, is formulated from a very early time in our infancy and childhood, and largely has a lot to do, of course, with the energies that our parents are operating within, particularly and most importantly our mothers, as we actually are doing so much of our development and so much of our dependency on our mothers in the first year of life. So we're very affected by the energies that our parents bring in, and it's not their fault because they were once infants too, and during that early period of life they were also very readily impacted by the energies that their parents were operating in, and so on and so forth. So this is not about blame, it's about recognizing I can't help but be impacted as an infant and a child, and even in my growing up years. I actually don't have the ability to truly discern and think like an adult till I'm in my early 20s. Some of you may not know that. So, and hopefully we start to use that ability at that time. We usually are playing in our energies that are reactions to and resistances to and attachments to our parents and what we think we need, how we've become identified as egos and humans, which is normal. It's the human experience. There's nothing wrong with that. But we suffer in our reactions to these energies quite often. And so releasing is a way for you to recognize that you don't actually have to have these things written in stone as if it really is you, or you really have to behave certain ways. You actually can let a lot of things go and become much more able to then use that discerning part of the mind that's readily there for us all, and be able to live life more fully here and now, seeing things now in real time and not through the reactive illusion of our childhood. And of course a lot of that illusion is from fear, because we're little, we're dependent, and we're shocked by these energies that are around us, and we learn from them, but we're learning from a very tense and fearful position. So one story I'd like to share with you to illustrate this is with a client who recently always had a problem with her relationship with her mother, and it was always quite tense and never felt really connected. And it turns out that she had a mother whose behaviors were really quite insecure, and therefore she was quite controlling and clear about what she thought everybody should do and what her judgments were, and it was kind of controlling. We tend to be very controlling when we're feeling anxious, so her mother had a tendency to have that pattern of being quite anxious and therefore quite controlling and quite certain about what was necessary and what we should do. So of course it was hard to connect with her mother. Her mother always had that judgment and that sense of what was right and what was wrong, and so she herself developed a lot of anxiety about whether she was good enough, but also whether she could ever connect with her mother. And she worked hard over the years on releasing and has become much more aware of that. And recently her mother has had a real stirring up of her own childhood anxieties and the actual cause of all of her demanding surface behaviors. And again, this is immediately going to cause an anxious revival happening in the reaction with respect to the client. The patient, she as the daughter feels anxious again. So here's how you might release this if you're in that kind of situation.